Welcome to Scoop World Order. We are live. It is Wednesday night. We are on the grind. There's a ton of stuff going on in the commitment watch. There's a ton of recruiting, a lot of great energy at spring practice as they are coming down the stretch for the last couple 10 days or so. A lot of great stuff going on. Huge new offer to a humongous kid, a 2026 offensive tackle who I think we're going to get real familiar with. He is a fantastic athlete for his age. Massive kid, 6'8". We're gonna get into that in a second. Again, great show lined up for you guys. We're gonna take your questions as well. But first, as always, we're grateful for you guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the show. Again, we love having you guys on here. Love seeing you guys ask great questions. Shout out where you're from in the comments. As always, comment which recruit or recent commit are you most excited about? We've had a bunch. We're about to get Aaron Noland as well. Big time stuff. And if you want to expand it even further, just make it what 2024 recruit are you most excited about? Because JJ Smith is kind of the ringleader of the class. He is killing it on the recruiting trail for Ohio State. He's basically Brian Hartline 2.0. Super aggressive, and I'm super excited about JJ. He's a awesome talent and an even better kid. That being said, I'm going to bring in my good friend Nevada Buck. Nevada, how are you tonight?
Doing great, man. Getting excited about this freshman basketball / football player. The last great tackle that we had, it was a great basketball player, was that Burt Carton kid out of Massillon Perry. You know what I'm saying? So there's something to be said for those basketball players that play football.
Yeah, I think, well, you know, and Orlando was a way better basketball player. I was done after my junior year or sophomore year. So this kid is named Sam Greer. Sorry, this is a little cut. I can slide it down a little bit. Sam Greer is a kid. He's from Akron-Hoban. I can zoom in on this a little bit. Him and Ryan getting the offer today. This kid is 6'8", 295, started on the Division I state championship basketball team that beat the Pickering team that had Mr. Basketball, a loaded team, a team that would have had Sonny Styles if he didn't graduate, like a loaded team that has Ohio State level basketball players on it. And this kid was guarding Royal, the guy who's going to Ohio State as Mr. Basketball, as a 6'8" freshman. So he's a superb athlete. He shoots threes. Like, I mean, he's, the thing that I think is going to be interesting is, does he outgrow football? Because he's already 6'8" as a 14-year-old. So, does he become 7'4" or something? And then, you wonder if he could play tackle at that level. But again, when you're that big, that lengthy, long arms, and you're that kind of an athlete, like, you just basically have to take the kid this early. He's a 2026, so he'll only be a sophomore next year at Archbishop Hoban, but upside absolutely through the roof. I mean, I imagine he probably hasn't spent much time in the weight room, just because when you play this level of basketball, you're playing AAU all summer. You're on the travel circuit, so you miss a lot of workouts with the football team. But Nevada, your thoughts on offering a tackle this young? I mean, you have to be a superb guy to get offered as a freshman by Ohio State, but your thoughts on this big time kid?
Well, yeah, I guess I just don't understand the rules, because I thought they couldn't offer you or talk to you until the end of your sophomore year, and then they come here and they got a freshman, and this guy's the next Dan Skipper and going to be 6'10" and playing offensive tackle for Ohio State. I mean, no, I think it's great. I think it's the way the game's played these days. You got to get in there. You've got to make an impression. For a local kid like this, it's a no-brainer, because if he turns out to be 1/10 of what you think he's going to be, it's worth the offer. And if he outgrows it, he's not going to play basketball. Not going to play football anyway. So no, I think it's a great offer, and by all accounts from people talking there, I think there's a very, very high probability he ends up to being a Buckeye.
Yeah, like I said, it'll be fascinating to see if he outgrows football. But he is a great athlete, big time guy. I love being aggressive early on the trail, and I think that you have to, when you get a superior athlete like that in the state of Ohio, kind of, get at him this early before NIL spikes up and kind of all the other stuff. Like, I think it's smart to go on him early, be the first offer. Like Urban Meyer used to always say, kids always remember their first offer. And he's right. I remember when Bowling Green offered me my first offer, before my junior year, Urban did it actually. And you always remember, you don't remember who your fifth offer was or eighth offer was, but you remember where you commit to, and you remember Urban, or, whoever your first one is. So, kudos to Justin Fry, Ryan Day, Tony Alford recruits that area, so he got a little bit of a shout out. But Nevada, we've had a wild run on the recruiting trail over the last few days. how are you feeling with all this momentum? Looks like we're gonna get our quarterback. JJ Smith is just absolutely a monster on Twitter, trying to recruit kids, trying to keep enhancing this class. But what are your thoughts on the direction of the 2024 and 2025 recruiting right now?
Yeah, well, the arrow's pointing straight up right now, and you always need to have that kind of can you find the cool kid that can help you recruit, and that stuff matters, man. It
Sure.
matters with how people think about your school. Those kids have got there's never a dead period with those kids. They can go and I go back to the old Brew Crew days when Mike Brewster was a legendary recruiter for Ohio State. Um, JJ Smith really likes the recruiting stuff, and he's really good at it. And he's the coolest of the cool kids, and he's recruiting everybody and anybody to Ohio State right now. And you keep hearing it when you hear it about the 50th time from people talking about how JJ Smith has been blowing up. Then there's really something to it. And I think for any Ohio State fans, the best news of all this is for any Ohio State fans that are worried about, I wonder if JJ Smith really is going to come to Ohio State. Well, he's recruiting like he is. So I think he seems to think he is. Ohio State seems to think he is, and yeah, all the arrows are pointing up for recruiting, and I think we're going to be having a series of some big time booms here over the next couple of weeks. So buckle up.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the thing about JJ is he's kind of a quiet kid, but man, he's just kind of taken the reins and caught fire over the last few weeks of just leading the class, and I love that. Like I think that it's important to have leadership in the class. I think it's important to, these guys, they all kind of grew up in the LeBron dream team era, not the dream team era, but like let's build this team, let's build it out, let's make sure that we get linemen, let's make sure we get D linemen. And I think that's important. Like I think that if guys are excited about being here, it's palpable. And I think that JJ is the guy who's really excited about being a Buckeye. And that's why I love the kid. Like I said, I think of all the kids I've been around, he's a super, super quiet kid, humble kid, monster on the field, work ethic off the charts. I interviewed him down in Naples. Great, great kid. But so for him to kind of come out of his shell and become a big time leader for the class is something it's really encouraging. Because again, like not everybody is a vocal guy. Not everybody wants to kind of put themselves out there to try and get recruits or whatever, potentially get shunned. And I think that, JJ is kind of coming out of his shell in like a major way. We got another receiver. Looks like he's going to be joining the show. Jeremiah McClellan is a guy who, again, Brian Hartline, this is about to be his third guy that he's going to nab. He's a Blazer, St. Louis kid, like Nelly, 5'10", another burner, 5'10", 195. We're going to click his film on here. All of the notable equal signs and crystal balls are all coming in for him right now this week. I think that he's going to be next. I think I think these kids all get together and say, I'm going to go on Thursday, you go on Saturday, and they kind of segue it so that nobody's kind of committing on top of each other. But we'll turn his film on real quick. But Nevada, have you ever seen anything like Brian Hartline's recruiting right now?
We talked about last night. The only thing that's even faintly resembling it is when Pete Carroll was really going full blown at USC and just grabbing kids from all over the country. I think it's the only thing that I can ever remember in my lifetime that's even remotely like this. Nothing like this has ever happened in Ohio State, that's for sure. We've had some good runs of recruiting, clearly, with the fact that we've lost 15 games in 11 years, but this just him stacking 5 stars, and you start talking about what the room can look like in a couple of years, 2-3 years down the road, and it's obscene. So yeah, Hartline is everything that we wanted him to be and more, and now he gets to be the offensive coordinator. He gets to utilize and deploy all this talent. So I think it'll just make him that much more deadly on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, good shout out there, CG. I think we're getting Aaron Scott and Bryce West. I mean, so we're going to get 2 5-star corners as well. Great year for corners in Ohio. That's not always the case, so we'll take advantage of that. This is one of my favorite plays in the football playbook. On Madden, this is kind of unstoppable, but the little touch pass, it's like a cheap way to inflate your passing percentage when you do this little push pass. It's like something Geno Smith had like an 80% passer rating because he used to do that to Tavon Austin all the time. But it's such an easy touch. Like I think that if we would have done that exact play at the end of the Georgia game to Mecca, we probably win the national championship. But for whatever reason, we didn't think to run a jet sweep when those guys were 15 yards off the ball. And they didn't really go with him in the man coverage. But this kid, very productive. Again, fast twitch. Brian only wants guys. This is a great clip. So, okay, actually, this is something that you don't see a lot of when you're watching this, when you see a kid actually blocking. Hang on a second. I'm going to reload this. Yeah, they actually had a clip of him blocking, which you never, ever see. But yeah, I think that, the momentum is palpable right now. I think that it's cool to be, committing to Ohio State. I think it's it's always been a national brand, but when you're getting JJ Smith out of Miami and you're getting, Air out of Georgia, I think it enhances it even further because kids, it's sometimes it's hard to leave home. Sometimes it's hard to turn down NIL, but these kids are making big time decisions, man. They're trying to better themselves. They're trying to not chase fast money. They're trying to really, become, what they want to be NFL wise. And sometimes that's tough. But yeah, I don't know.
Well,
But we're gonna.
but think about how far we've come. Remember when Kirk Herbstreit got up on national TV and said, "I wouldn't send my kid to play football there in that offense," or something. It was something to that effect. And Ohio State was a national brand, but it was kind of known for, the powerful running backs and 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and yada yada yada. And now Ohio State is the high octane, throw it every down, first round wide receivers, galore, first round quarterbacks galore. I mean, boy, what a transformation for the program. And, from a profile standpoint, we may not like it all as fans and as fans of kind of Big Ten football, but from a recruiting standpoint, there's nothing that's more glamorous and exciting than playing, offense. They say, like chicks dig the long ball, will recruits dig scoring points in football, and that makes Ohio State kind of the now team.
Yeah, and I think that they also dig, like these guys that, might have to sit the bench back up for a year or two. And then when it's their turn, they get a really prolific role. And we've seen guys do that and they end up going, to the league and having a nice career. I mean, we've seen guys that have really, played, not a minimal amount, but they haven't been superstars. But, the Brian Hartline brand as a coach and his training is kind of revered by the scouting community and by NFL personnel guys, general managers. And so they'll take chances on Ohio State guys because they can play. Then you see guys like Ben Victor, he's on like year 5 in the league right now. You see guys like Austin Mack sticking. So New York Giants still sticking around, made a roster, played in some games, looked good. So I think that, the Brian Hartline mystique is interesting. I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how he does calling plays. Do they put him in the booth, which I would imagine they would. Nevada, if you, gun to your head today, had to guess where Brian Hartline's going to be at on game days, would you say upstairs or downstairs?
Upstairs. I think it's already been predetermined. I think he's going upstairs, and I think that's the only really logical place for him to be as the offensive coordinator. So no, I think that's been determined unless something changes. And Ohio State's already kind of experimenting with that, playing around with that stuff, and using Keegan as kind of more of a coach on the field and letting Brian kind of start scripting stuff, going things, working on game scripts, working on practice scripts. So no, it's like I said, it's gonna be interesting. You've made the great point about when your offensive coordinator is also your wide receivers coach. What does that mean for your wide receivers? It means more touches and more throws. So if we thought we threw it a lot before, we're going to throw it even more. And maybe maybe our balance was pretty good, but I think it's going to be even more throwing this year than ever before.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how much of a hand Ryan has in it. I'd love to look, because offhand, I can't think of many teams that use their wide receivers coach as also an offensive coordinator. I think generally it's a tight ends coach, it's a walk around offensive coordinator, or it's a quarterbacks coach. Because coaching receivers is a tough job. It's kind of like coaching offensive line because you're coaching at usually at minimum 3 guys on the field, at maximum 5 guys on the field. The O-line is always 5 guys, sometimes 6 guys on the field. So it's going to be interesting to see how Brian balances that. Again, I know he's got a lot of help with Keenan Bailey, with Devin Jordan, the QC. It takes an army, and we have a very deep support staff. We've got Todd Finch, who He's a QC, but he makes $250,000, so he's not like a regular QC that makes 24 grand. He's making significant money. He's basically making, you know, middle tier coach money for most programs. Not Ohio State, because we set the record for most salary increases in the highest salary pool this year. But normally, like when Zach Smith had his first year at Ohio State, he made 150 grand. So Todd Finch, as a off the field coach, quality control coach, is making 250. And he doesn't recruit, doesn't go on the road, whatever. And so, you kind of see how they've expanded the pool for the quote unquote bullpen around the program. And I think it's smart, because I think that when you have those guys in the building and you know them and you trust them the way Ryan Day trusts Todd Finch, if somebody moves on, if Brian Hartline moves on or somebody moves on, this is all just speculation. You have a bullpen of guys ready to go that can coach positions. You could shift someone over, promote Todd Finch or whoever, and you have a little bit more cohesion. I always thought that was something that Nick Saban was genius about when he had a lot of these fired head coaches come in and be quality control coaches for a year or two. Butch Jones, Lane Kiffin, and then they stick around, they learn the program, and if somebody leaves, they potentially could become the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, linebackers coach, whatever. It's funny because
now, did you just break that Brian Hartline's leaving Ohio State? Was that the thing?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. He's going back to the NFL to play for the Browns.
This is big, man. This is big news,
Huge.
man. You kind of buried the lead on this one right now, man. That's huge. Wow.
He's now going to be the head football coach for the South Florida Express. He took Brett Gutz's job, and he's gonna smoke his cigars on the sideline and wear his pullover.
I love it.
Yeah, I do too. But no, this is get these questions going. I love some of these questions. Tyler, you bring great questions every night. I'm gonna put this one up. What's our identity going to be with the offense for this year's team with Brian Hartline as the offensive coordinator? I'll let you take that first.
Well, we talked about, throwing, more, but, you've got a great running back room as well. And, I think with Brian, one of the things that he wants to do is he really wants to, kind of fully integrate the running backs into the passing attack, which is something that we haven't seen before. We haven't seen it since the days of Walt Harris in terms of really, kind of working passes, swing passes out there to the running backs. So I think you're going to see kind of a more fully integrated passing attack. I think, Brian's going to be cognizant of the fact that the running backs need touches as well. And you've got a huge backfield full of those guys, but, you're going to try to protect the offensive line best you can. You're going to try to get your guys touches, and, you've got a quarterback that's going to come in and try to be kind of a game manager, because, you don't have that dynamic, established first team All-American top of the draft guy who's going to throw for 5,000 yards. So you can ask that quarterback just to be responsible, distribute the ball around, and get feed as many of the mouths as you possibly can. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think that every year that we've had to replace a quarterback, you always kind of wonder, how are we going to do it? And we've done it pretty easily. I mean, losing Dwayne Haskins and his production, like how are we ever going to? We get Justin Fields just as productive. Then we get C.J. Stroud just as productive. So, with the way our skills coming and the way our receiver room is really on fire. Tight ends are going to be really good with Joe Royer, Cade Stover. The line will be good. The running back room might be the deepest room we've ever had in the history of the program. So, again, the weapons are there. I mean, the infrastructure is there. It's big time. We start off with 3 cream puffs, Indiana, Youngstown, like those types of teams. So get our sea legs under us before we head to Notre Dame, which will be a war, and that's one that we got to go get after to get that win. But I think by then, these guys will be comfortable and they'll be ready to rock. I do not know if we will tackle. I would guess we will not tackle in the spring game. Under Ryan Day, and even under Urban, like towards the end, we never tackled in the spring game. Michigan tackled. I don't think that it hurts to tackle in the spring game, but I think that guys are just so paranoid about injury, and and again, I don't think that a lot of guys don't get hurt getting tackled, but like Mitchell Melton just his knee got caught and he tore his ACL. So sometimes I think that we get a little too cautious. I think that with fans in the stadium, I think it's good to tackle. Like when I played back in the olden days, like we tackled every year for the spring game, and we were fine. And again, I think it's good to get hit. I think it's good for quarterbacks to be live and for quarterbacks to get hit. Especially if they're young quarterbacks, just let those offensive tackles have a little bit of pressure on them now. Because I'm telling you, it's different when that the quarterback can't get tattooed if you let the guy by. But some of these guys, I don't think they felt that pressure yet. And, it's something that I think it's good to get that anxiety up a little bit. Hey, if I miss my block, my quarterback's going to the hospital. So, I don't want that for those guys, but I think that it makes those guys kind of sharpen up a little bit when they're rolling into it. Do I
No,
think, good?
now, hold on here, Mr. Barton. Heard one of the great ideas. I think this is a great idea. Would love to hear your impressions of this idea. Would love to hear the board's impression of this idea. But the idea was in lieu of kind of the traditional spring game type of thing, you play scrimmage games against like another college.
Oh, that'd be
And
amazing. I think.
wouldn't that be amazing?
I
I
think
think that would give,
I think it'd be amazing. And play the starters for a little bit, and then play all. Because I mean,
yeah.
really, it would turn into a game for the young guys. It'd be like watching the two JV teams go at it. You'd probably start with the starters for a quarter, and then after that, it's like a JV scrimmage. All the young guys going against the young guys. I think it'd be great. I mean, if you're Ohio State, you could have Kent State come down, or I mean, you don't have to have someone to fly in and spend a bunch of money. Like Cincinnati could bus up, and I don't know. I think that'd be fantastic, honestly, because it would add a little bit of juice to the game. I think if you did kind of like all-star game rules where there's no blitzing, there's no whatever, or maybe there's blitzing, I don't know. But I think sometimes like, if you make it a little cleaner and less likely that people, especially the young kids that don't really know the plays, they won't blow an assignment. I think that'd be better. Especially like we have like four guys that came in early from high school. And you don't want them blowing an assignment, getting somebody killed because they don't just know the playbook yet. But I think it's a fantastic idea. I'd love that. I think it'd add a lot of juice to the stadium. I think we'd get a far better crowd just because, you'd be seeing a different set of colors in the shoe. But I love that idea. I think it's a fantastic idea, honestly. The only thing that would make it better is if it was like, we did like a cross country game or something. Because I think it's always good to go on a little trip. Like if we go to, a recruiting territory like Miami or Los Angeles or Texas or somewhere, that's the only thing that would make it better. Because then you could, have recruits at the game and have them host them there and they get to see Ohio State play down in those different little regions. So, Josh Fargo, that's a great question. Could Carnell Tate become the starting Z by the end of the year? Nevada, I'll let you take this one first.
I think so. I think so. I mean, look, I mean, Fleming's a great kid, a productive kid, been there for a while, plays a little stiff for my liking, whether that's injury or whether he's just kind of tightly wound, but he's just always been that way since he set foot on the campus. And I think Carnell's different. I think he's a different kind of athlete, and I think he adds a different kind of dimension. And I think if you're putting Carnell and Marvin and Emeka out there on the field at the same time, boy, that you've got a lot of different options. Right? You got to pick your poison from a defensive standpoint. And I think it could happen, and I think it probably will happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Carnell's already better than Julian Fleming. I'm not trying to slight Julian. I know he's older. He's been very dinged up, but he doesn't create a lot of separation when he's in his routes, not being a hater. But I've talked to a lot of people in the Woody Hayes that say that. I mean, he's a guy that, great kid. He was the number one overall player in the country. I think that kind of boosts his standing and thoughts, by the fan base and by some people. But, I think that Carnell's a guy that is a 3-and-out first-round pick type guy, and those guys are the ones that you worry about. Like, I don't think that anybody defending our offense would be happier to see Julian than Carnell. Like, I think that, like, if you have to pick one to defend, you're picking Julian just because he can't take the top off the game. He isn't as fluid of a route runner. He's not smooth. And he just, I don't think he has the ability that Carnell does. It's not a slight on him, but I think Carnell's a very special player. And he's a prototypical Z. I think Ennis is a prototypical slot. I think those guys are going to do a lot of work. I think after Emeka leaves, and as Emeka, hopefully rotates in and out, I think that, Brandon Ennis is going to be our number 2 slot guy behind Emeka, because he's coming and he's already knows the playbook. He's been working hard, before he's even gotten there. He's just an absolute monster, work ethic guy, loves to work, loves to train. So I think, Ennis and Tate have no ceilings right now. And then JJ shows up the next year and Marvin leaves, JJ walks in, and I think JJ starts at the X week 1. I really do, as a true freshman. So I'm not crazy, but I see their talent and I see how immense it is, and I see how hard they work, and kind of their mental makeup, just in terms of, these guys show up, man. They're all business. They're there to get better and to play and to get out and to go pro and to get paid. So they do not screw around. So again, like mental makeup is like some kids show up to Ohio State. It's party time. It's, hey, I'll wait my turn. And then there's kids like JJ and Brandon Ennis and Carnell Tate, and I mean they show up, man. It is all business. So I think those guys will be fantastic. Yeah, like I said, I love Brandon Ennis. I got to text him and get the podcast squared away with him. But yeah, he was supposed to come on last Friday, but he was up in Columbus. I told him, like, dude, you're up here, hang out with your boys, hang out with Carnell and those guys. And I said I'd get him this week, so I'll shoot him a text and see if he's around tomorrow to knock that out. But yeah, I throw in a little scrimmage video. So Nevada, we talked a little bit about what they're doing with Sonny Styles. It's exactly what I thought they should do. Again, I think Sonny Styles has to play a lot this year. But in your nugget, you talked a little bit about what you believe will be happening with Sonny. Go through a little bit of that, and do you think it's going to come to fruition?
Well, I think it is. I think it's the plan is to kind of play him on early downs. Almost Sam linebacker and kind of walk him out and let him kind of use his athleticism on the running downs, and then on the passing downs kind of roll him back, whether you call it the bandit or whatever you want to call it. Put him back there as a safety. It's kind of a different look for Knowles. Knowles has played kind of that 3 safety look. They've talked about a 3 cornerback look. This would almost be a 2 safeties and a linebacker / safety look. So, I mean, look, there's a number of different ways that they're planning on deploying him. The best news of all is that they've realized that they can't have another lost year like they did last year, because he's 3 and out. Got to get him on the field. They're planning to get him on the field, and I think you're going to see him a lot on early downs, and I think you're going to see him roaming around the defensive secondary on passing downs.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that he's a guy that early downs, running downs, he's perfect off the edge. He's a guy who can blitz. He's a guy that for a slot receiver to try to block will be a chore, just because he's such a big physical guy. He's got long arms. He's explosive, really, really built, ripped up right now. And I think he's going to be a problem. I think he can play well in space. I think he's just a kid that you have to find a role for. I don't think it's just having him hang back at deep safety. I think that his physicality and his speed off the edge, because again, they've talked about making him a jack, a Leo, or whatever, a defensive end, but that Sam linebacker is kind of the perfect spot. It's not Micah Parsons, but it's like, you can kind of use him like that and bring him off the edge sometimes. And I think he'd be a chore to block. I really do, because I think he can get home. I think he's got the length to get around tackles, deflect balls. And, I was really excited because this is kind of a departure from what Jim Knowles has done. And I think it's a smart move because like they know, Sonny's gone. It's kind of like, he might not be the perfect fit as a nickel, but, Paris Johnson wasn't a perfect fit as a right guard either, but they put him in there and he balled out and he was fantastic. So didn't give up a single sack as a right guard 2 years ago. And I think Sonny's kind of in that similar trajectory, and he'll end up being our strong safety or bandit next season when Lathan and Josh Proctor move on to the NFL. Yeah, I heard some great stuff about Josh Proctor. Again, I'm rooting for the guy. It's crazy. Like, I talk to people in the program and they say he's a beast, he's a monster, and again, he's one of the most perplexing kids I've ever covered, been around, whatever. Just because I've heard all this stuff about how good he is, how he's a monster, he's a beast, he's a different animal, and then last year he barely played. So again, I don't know. I just report it, and again, the sources are great. So I'm hoping for the best for Josh. Playing that free safety, I think that he could have a big year. I think that he ironed stuff out with the secondary coaches, with Jim Knowles, to stay for that 6 year. He didn't have to. He could have transferred out and gone to Florida like a lot of people were projecting him to do. So I think that he's due for a big role, and I think that he's locked in now, which is really exciting. What other questions do you guys have? You guys always have some good ones.
Well, how would we ever cover anybody if we have Ransom and Styles and Proctor back there? Like, don't people want like 9 cornerbacks on the field to match up with every wide receiver that kind of goes out? Because in case somebody slips and falls down. I mean, I like it, but it's like I think the first time that we get beat for a deep touchdown, then people are going to be screaming for Knowles' head for running his exotic, jinky defense that he runs with these types of athletes out there.
Yeah, it's funny because if someone, you can have the perfect defense, but if someone doesn't hit the fit, I always think of the Tommy Eichenberg play when we were trying to tie up with Michigan and we gave up that 75 run, and everybody was in the perfect spot except Tommy. Tommy's a little late, and I love Tommy. Tommy's one of my favorite players. He's a captain. He's going to be an All-American this year. But, when you design a defense, if a guy's in the wrong gap, bad things happen, and we shut their running game down for the first half, and then, we miss a couple of fits late in the game, and it turns into this bloodbath. But that's just kind of how football is. It's kind of how defense is. It's kind of how, if you're going to engage people to stop the running game, it's they got to be in the right spots, or else it doesn't look great. But I agree with you. I think that having Sonny, like I said, Sonny's got to get out there. I think CJ Hicks has to get out there. Those are guys that need the reps. They need the they need the experience. Because in year 3 for CJ, he'll be taking over for likely Steel Chambers as well. And it'll be interesting to see, Cody Simon, does he get another year? Because Cody's been playing great too. He's been playing Mike the whole spring with Tommy being held out. And I think our linebacker room is actually surprisingly deep, despite the fact that we whiffed in recruiting last year. So a lot of good things going on. Charles Lester, I think that chances are okay for Charles. I think for Zabian, they're much better. There's a two South Florida Express defense or DBs. But yeah, Charles Lester's he's a really good player. Like that'd be a massive pool if we could get him. But yeah, like I said, the Carnell Tate stuff is kind of nonstop, just because he has really been, he's the guy that's taken advantage of the absence of some of those starters. Like that's the thing, is like when some of these guys sit out or some of these guys are hurt, some of these young guys get to run with the ones all of a sudden instead of running with the threes, and he's been dominating. So I'm excited about him. I think he's going to be we're going to put some Bryce on. I got some Bryce West on here somewhere. There's Bryce West.
But wait a second. So if Carnell Tate's doing well, does that mean that our defensive backs are bad?
Yes. It means they're terrible.
Oh,
it means we have no chance. We'll never beat Indiana. We'll never beat Indiana week 1 ever.
I hate how this works, man. I tell you, when the defensive ends are rushing well, then our tackles are bad. When the wide receivers are well, then we got to worry about our defensive backs. I can never rest, man. I can never rest.
Oh, I think it sucks. Like, I mean, I've been a player during spring ball. I've been on staff during spring ball. One side of the building feels good. The other side of the building feels like trash. Well, I mean, there were days when the defense beat us. There's days where we beat the defense. We had winner loser days. And, with Urban back in the glory days, like if we lost, we had to run. And I'm talking everybody. I'm talking the coaches, like the old fat coaches would have to run across the field down back, running sprints. So he used to run the whole offense or the whole defense if they lost. So that was always kind of fun watching some of those old guys, those old coaches run, because it looked like they hadn't ran in 35 years or 40 years or whatever. So, I'm high on Jack Sawyer. I'm buying all the Jack Sawyer stock I can get. I might be the only person on earth doing that. I think that last year playing that Jack position was a total fish out of water move. I think that hand on the ground, teams focusing on JT2 Malou, Jack wanting to go pro after this year, which again, it's not, as of today, there's, no chance, but he has a big year, man. I mean, he could. I mean, guys, you only need one big year as a defensive end, and you got to hit, 9-10 sacks to get there. But your thoughts on Jack Sawyer in Nevada?
Yeah, I think, I think he's undervalued for whatever reason by the OSU fan base. And there's always those guys that seem to kind of, fall between the cracks. There's some guys that catch all the hype, and other guys just are the whipping boys. I think Jack's kind of a little bit of a whipping boy for the fan base. And no, I think he is a double-digit sack guy. I'd be shocked. I'm setting the over-under for him at 10. And I think for him and JT, I think they're both 10-sack guys this year. And I'd be shocked if either one of them was under.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, with Knowles having 57 sacks his last year at Oklahoma State, I think it seems obvious that these ends are going to produce, especially with the way our defensive tackles are coming along with Ty Leak, Ty Hamilton, Mike Hall. I mean, those guys can get after the passer. I think the biggest concern on the D-line is his depth. Is Kenyatta ready to go and play 25 snaps a game? Because you got to rotate guys on the D-line. It's not like the O-line. It's not like a lot of positions. Like the D-line, you need 10 guys. You need 8 to 10 guys to roll through, because it's an exhausting spot. You have to run to the ball. You don't have to do that on the O-line, so it's a little bit easier. But it's interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, we're getting a comment. Tipper, I agree. Proctor barely played the last 5 years, but he's starting today. He's been with the ones every snap so far this spring. So, and he started the first game last year. And again, I heard great. I mean, Jim Knowles literally said, in mid-August during camp at a press conference, Josh Proctor could be the best safety in the entire country this year. Yeah, and again, so that's why it was perplexing that he went from that to, he can't play against Rutgers when we're up by 87 points. So this is a great question. Are we going to have another 10 captains again this year? I don't know. I mean, we love voting for a million captains. I don't know why. I think that it's, if you have 10 captains, you kind of have no captains, but I guess that they just want to fix up some of these guys' resumes. But I think guys that seem to make sense for captains this year, obviously Marvin, Emeka, Cade Stover, running backs. I don't know if mine, Trey's only a third year, so probably not. O-line, the only guy I think that would even have a chance is Donnie, maybe Josh Fryer. So there's 3, 4. D-line, they're all juniors, so I don't know if you make JT one. So there's 6. Tommy's one for sure, 7. And then back end, do you make Lathan one, I guess? He's a senior. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they do the captains. I think the guys that are locks are Marvin for sure, maybe Emeka. But you're looking at 6, 7 captains. Like if you asked me to do it, I'd say Marvin's a captain, Tommy's a captain, Cade Stover's a captain, Lathan or Ransom. Those are 4 captains. You don't need to have 17 captains like we've done in the past. I think that's stupid. I think it's silly. But for whatever reason, we've done that because it's like everybody gets the trophy kind of culture. So, Nevada, if you had to pick captains today, how many would you take and who would they be?
Yeah, I mean your 4 is pretty good. I mean it's hard to really argue with that. I mean some of them are just you want your War Daddies and your Marvins and your Cades and your Tommies are really obvious. And then after that, like I said, I think it's got to be Lathan. So that would be my 4 as well. But I'm old school. I like less captains. I don't like to have I hated it when we had the captain a week thing, which was probably the worst experiment since New Coke. And glad that we're not doing that one anymore. But yeah, I think we're one step removed from that when we have like 9 captains and 8 of them don't play. I'd rather have guys that are surefire veteran All-American vocal team leaders on the team to be your captains because I think that's what football teams need.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, again, and this isn't anything, but I think that like to be a good captain at Ohio State, I think you have to play. You have to be at least all Big Ten. You have to be the most productive guy on your side of the ball. You have to be really on point. It's a lot of pressure. Like I said, I did it my last year as a captain, and we were coming off getting waxed by Florida, so we had to pick up the pieces after getting destroyed, and it's tough, and we lost Troy Smith and Gonzo and Ginn and Pittman and Doug Daddish and TJ. And we lost a lot of really good players, a lot of older players on offense. And, I looked around in the huddle and there just weren't many guys left. So it's tough because, I mean, when you're the guy, you have to be the guy. It's like, and that's something I didn't take lightly. Like, you have to grade out. You can't be out on the field sucking and being terrible and then expect people to listen to you when you're a leader. Like, you better be finishing your blocks. You better be winning the conditioning races. You better be, setting the tone in practice. And, again, would I rather just kind of be in my own little world and do whatever I wanted to do and just worry about me? Yeah, of course. But like when, we don't really have anyone else that can do it, I had to be the captain. And it's something that, I kind of relished it because we were picked to be 3rd in the Big Ten and teams kind of just, crapped all over us and we were able to, have a good year. I mean, I felt like we overachieved. We weren't really that great, but we made it to the national title game, whatever. But I think that, it's important to play. I personally, it's hard for me to respect somebody who's leading from the sideline. And I might just be whatever, unless it's a blowout and you're a captain and you're up 75 points and you're on the sideline cheering guys on. That's one thing. But if it's like a tight game, it's 21 to 14 in the fourth quarter. Like I don't need to hear it from some guy who's on the sideline and has played 3 snaps. Like I don't. Like I mean, you need guys that are out there and they're the ones putting it on the line and they're the ones that have to make it happen. So it's tough. I agree. The hardworking coaches make the best, or players make the best coaches. Yeah, I think James Laurinaitis is fantastic. I think there's a lot of guys that are really on the come up in the coaching. It's amazing how many of my former teammates have gotten into coaching. Like Chase Ferris is a head coach now. He's got Troy Smith and Duran Grant as his coordinators, which is going to be interesting. But yeah, it's going to be crazy. Well, Nevada, I think we're going to wrap this.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, let me just throw while we're talking about coaches. I'm just going to throw a name out there that's just going to drive people insane. We talked a little bit about this a bunch of podcasts ago, but JT Barrett back to Ohio State in some coaching capacity.
Could happen.
Would people just completely lose their mind if that happened?
Oh, people would hate it. JT is the greatest. JT is the greatest kid, the nicest kid. Two Army parents, like one of the toughest players, one of the most proficient players, one of the most productive players, 3-time captain. And there's a lot of idiots out there that can't stand the kid, that hate the kid, and it's not fair. I love JT to death. One of my favorite kids I've ever been around. A kid that I wish I would have been able to play with. And I tell him that all the time. Like I text JT all the time. So I'm always rooting for him. I think he's got no ceiling on his coaching career. He can be as good as he wants to be. But yeah, I would take him in a millisecond to come back to Ohio State, coach the quarterbacks, coach anything, receivers. I think it'd be, if Brian Hartline, becomes a full-time walk-around OC, JT could coach receivers. I mean, Kenny Guyton is the wide receivers coach for Arkansas right now. So, Kenny G was a quarterback. He's a little bit younger than JT, or excuse me, a little bit older than JT. But, I think that they've got similar, trajectories. They really apply themselves to it. They'll be fantastic at it. So, but yeah, we'll wrap this thing, Nevada. Any final thoughts as we close this one down?
Nah, just get ready for some commitments, man. We're on commitment watch tonight, tomorrow, next day. It could be happening, as you said. I think the think/know the kids have kind of spaced these things out, and look for some edits to be popping on Twitter and some big booms to be happening.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big time equals sign weekend. So super excited about that. Again, thank you guys so much for joining us. We love talking with you guys. Again, you guys really help with the show, carry the show. It's a blast. Again, we love doing this with you guys. Fantastic questions as always. Thank you to all our regulars that are on here. If you guys enjoy this, I'm telling you, BuckeyeScoop.com is your new home. We're on there all day. I'm going to jump on there right after this. We're doing a mock draft right now with our board members. Everybody can pick a team, first come, first serve. So, I think we're on pick 3 right now, but it gets rolling pretty quick and everybody gets to do it. And then we'll probably do 1 or 2 more before the draft, but people love that. Bill Green has had some fantastic stuff. We have a great Masters thread right now. I'm telling you, BuckeyeScoop.com. If you're not on it, you're missing out because it is a blast. It's the best community out there. Really, really well done. Really, really good people. So give us a shot. So I appreciate you guys. As always, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like, click subscribe, click that little bell. You'll get an alert every time we go live because I don't want you guys to miss the show. Because again, you guys help us, man. You guys are awesome on here and we really appreciate that. So thank you guys so much. As always, thank you, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I will see you guys on BuckeyeScoop.com on the Ask the Insiders message board. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.